You know the Victorians like a death and they like a hero. Well, they're all there in Postman's Park. And now, at last, I'm very glad to say, we have a book about it called Postman's Park, G.F. Watts's Memorial to Heroic Self-Sacrifice. And the person who's written it, John Price, is here with us now. John, welcome to BBC London.
Thank you very much, Robert.
Now, you were kind of nodding when I said about discovering Postman's Park, because did the same sort of thing happen to you?
Yes, yeah, I had a similar experience. About 7 or 8 years ago, I would work in the area from time to time, and on sort of nice summer days, I would sit in the park and have my lunch. And
Which quite a lot of people do,
exactly, yes, and gaze in wonder at these things, these quirky Victorian plaques on the wall, and just was filled with wonder with the tales of daring and heroism that they displayed, and sort of wanted to find out more. And as you say, there hasn't really been a definitive study of the monument or a definitive book. So I decided it was time there should be one. So
what's the story of the park, or certainly of the plaque? When did it all begin?
Basically, the Victorian portrait artist George Frederick Watts, in 1887, Watts writes a letter to the Times newspaper, and he basically calls for a commemoration of Queen Victoria's Jubilee. And he says that there should be some sort of recognition or monument erected to recognise people that he refers to as everyday heroes. That's in 1887. A few people take him up on the idea, but nothing tangible actually comes of it. So in 1900, the clergy at St Botolph's Church, because the park adjoins...
that's the church that's there, yeah?
That's the big church that's there. It used to be the burial ground of St Botolph's, Aldersgate. The vicar of the church, they buy some extra land and they want to do something with this piece of land in the park. So they through a shared sort of network of connections, someone puts him in touch with Watts, and Watts suggests this idea that's been, I think, rattling around in Watts's head for 30 or 40 years, even prior to his letter to the Times.
And so, how did they go out getting public subscriptions to raise the money, or how did they do it?
Basically, the park need an extra £3,000 to buy the extra
land. Which I guess
land.
then was quite a considerable
amount of money. Yeah, they'd already raised £3,000. They needed another £3,000, and they used the park as a means of raising a subscription to buy the land. And then Watts basically sort of finances these tablets himself. He works with William de Morgan at first.
Who's that?
He was a sort of 19th century ceramicist, quite sort of well known. He abandons making ceramics in 1907 to go off on a be quite a successful novelist. But at the time, he's one of the leading ceramicists, and he's in the set with Watts. He's sort of the Holland House set, yeah. Leighton, people like that. So Watts approaches him and asks him to make the first 4 tablets, which go up onto the monument in 1900. They opened the extended piece of ground and the monument in an opening ceremony in 1900. They put 4 tablets up. But they're not just celebrating people who died recently, are they? They go back to the 1880s. So they've obviously been storing these up, if you like. Yes, Watts had somebody collecting clippings from the Times and from various newspapers in the newspaper archive, and he built up this huge store of cases. His plan, I think, well, what he says is that he wants every town and city in the country to have one of these monuments, and he's going to start and do the London one with London cases, and he hopes that everybody else will be inspired to do a similar thing. And of course, sadly they don't. And how many are up there, and how long did it go on for? There are 61 tablets. 50. Hang on, let me think. 53 tablets, right, to 61 people. Gotcha. And because some of the tablets have more than one person, so there's 53 tablets. And the earliest case is 1863, which is a Sarah Smith, a pantomime artist who perishes trying to extinguish the flaming dress of a fellow performer, which. Some of these... there's a certain inherent humour in there. There's a tragic sort of comedy of errors element with some of these cases. And they go right the way through to about... the peak of it is in the sort of late 19th century, early 20th century. What was the latest one? The latest one was one in 1930, but it's a little bit of an anomaly. They take a tablet down, one of the original William de Morgan tablets, they take it down because there's actually some incorrect information on it. Right. And they want to replace it with something else. But of course, by then, the process had moved on to Dalton of Lambeth were making the tablets. And if you look at the tablets in Postman's Park, you can see they're radically different in their design and their colouring and everything. Because the original ones are really quite kind of high Art Nouveau style, aren't they? Exactly, yes. I think the Dalton ones are quite quite mass-produced. So what they do is they find one of De Morgan's original ceramicists who's now working for someone else in 1930, and they get him to make another tablet, which they replace in the gap. But after that, it basically sort of the idea fizzles out, really.
Now, how did you go about getting the information in the book and finding out the stories of the people who are commemorated?
Well, I'm basically a historian. I did a degree in history. I'm now doing a PhD in history at King's College in London. And
Strand Poly. I was at the LSE.
Oh, yes. Slight between the two. So I was doing a research project, and I needed basically a summer project, and I thought, there isn't a book on it. There should be a book on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll just start, and it just opened up this world of research.
And was the information all there?
It's there if you dig, yes. I mean, the book contains basically the history of the monument, its development, how the tablets were put up, when they were put up. I also feature a case study of Alice Ayres, who's probably the most well-known, or sort of, none of these people are famous.
I mean, she's on the front, isn't she? Alice Ayres,
indeed, yes.
And it says, daughter of a bricklayer's labourer, who by intrepid conduct saved 3 children from a burning house in Union Street Borough at the cost of her own young life, April the 24th, 1885.
Yes, and you get Alice's full story in the book. I tell the story right from the moment when she loses her life, right the way through to the full commemorative process, the tablets and everything like that. And then I also engage a little bit with this general idea of everyday heroism, which is what I'm doing my PhD on, and it just fascinates me. But yes, it's all there.
Could you find it? If you wanted to do a case study on each of them, could you find the information, do you think? Or have you?
Yes, I've got there's really? Hopefully a second volume in the press. What I'd like to do is...
and do they all stack up?
They do.
Yeah?
Yes,
okay.
yeah. I mean, some of them, as you say, are a comedy of errors. Some of them, I think, in the modern day, we would look at the circumstances and say, is that really heroism, or is that just
stupidity?
Yes, people going out rowing in the middle of the night and getting knocked out of their boats by Thames steamers and things like that. So,
and there's also the languages where it says, didn't one die pulling a lunatic off the railway track?
Yes, the language can be quite florid, I think, at times, and it's very Victorian in its conception. But at the root of it is that sense of wanting to see these people remembered for what they did, because they all did really sort of give their lives trying to save someone else. So I think Watts really believed in that.
Yeah, and I guess there's also that Victorian fascination with death as well, isn't there, really? Which they clearly were kind of very fascinated by.
Yes, I mean, all of these people are dead heroes, basically. They're all people who lost their lives. The Victorians were very big on rewarding heroism, but here we have somebody who's very big on taking the dead heroes and doing something with them as well.
Who's the park looked after by?
It's actually, St Botolph's have a stake in it. It's technically theirs, it belongs to them, but it's administered and cared for by the City Gardens Association.
And is it cared for properly?
It is. I think it's very well maintained. We have some talks with the City Gardens people recently about putting up an information board so that people know a little bit more about them. Hopefully quite tastefully done, but something that will give people some more information.
Give it a bit of context.
Very much so, yes, yeah. And we're planning an open day as well in June this year. A big sort of open day festival event.
When you say we, is there a Friends of Postman's Park?
There is plans to be. Yes, there's plans to be. It's basically the Watts Gallery that now have become very interested.
Is there a link to Watts there?
Watts G.F. Watts was the painter who originally wrote to the Times and suggested it, and he's the one who then built it and financed it and saw it through until about 1904 when he passed away and his wife took over administering it. So I think the Watts Gallery and the Watts people see it very much as part of his legacy, part of his work, and they want to see it promoted. I think it's a wonderful place.
Yeah, me too.
I'd like to see it.
And it's a lovely bit of London as well, isn't it? That bit of Little Britain and Cloth Fair. I mean, it's like stepping back in time.
Mm-hmm. And with the Museum of London just right on its doorstep, and St Paul's and the Guildhall, it's a wonderful place. It's a real sense of tranquility in the city. So,
well, if you've never been, get yourself along to Postman's Park, and when you do, you'll want to know more about it. In which case, you must buy this book. Where can people get it?
The easiest way, probably at the moment, to get it is directly from the Watts Gallery people. Can I give you a website?
Yeah, please do.
It's www.wattsgallery, which is all one word, wattsgallery.org.uk, and you can purchase the book directly from them. It's £10, which for a nicely produced,
beautiful,
I think it's very good value for money. It's also available at the Guildhall Art Gallery, the Museum of London, National Portrait Gallery, perhaps St Paul's, all the kind of major places in the vicinity. So
excellent. Well, thank you for doing it, and thanks for coming in and telling us about it.
It's been a great pleasure. Well,
That's Postman's Park, G.F. Watts' Memorial to Heroic Self-Sacrifice by John Price. John, thanks for coming in.
Cheers. Thank you.